Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today I am talking to Sam Corbett, a man who's living proof that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Just 5 years ago, the Sheepdogs drummer was diagnosed with cancer at age 34, while his wife was pregnant with their first child to boot. But rather than wallow in misery while sidelined from his band, he channeled his energy into creating his own music and emerged with his debut solo album as Nutana, named for his old Saskatoon neighborhood. While the LP deals openly and honestly with his health crisis, it's neither dark nor depressing, opting instead for bright, warm, vintage-sounding pop rock and indie folk, peppered with just a bit of his band's shaggy can rock. A few weeks before Nutana's release, Corbett zoomed in from home to discuss his recovery, loving Leon Russell, Juno streakers, and plenty more. Enjoy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Sam Corbett. It's going well. How is it going with you?
Good. Yeah. Sorry, how's this microphone sound? It's just my computer one, but I have done other podcasts before with it.
You sound just fine. Are you happy with how you sound?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, then. Were you at the Junos?
Yeah, I just got back. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you resisted the urge to rip off your shirt and leap on stage?
we kind of like, I was kind of watching when Avril Lavigne like went up there, and then I just was talking with someone or whatever, and then kind of looked back and like, what is going on? And the first thing I thought, which is I think what a lot of people thought, was that it was like a stage thing. Apparently that's what the security guard thought, and that's why it took so long to get that person off the stage, is because they thought it was like part of the show. They just seem so confident. And
maybe. I mean, I just think there's no rush for any security guard to try and take a half-naked woman off of a stage at any point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I was fine with it, but at the same time, I understand, Avril, our one of our publicists, kind of mentioned that, like, she probably has a lot of stalkers and stuff, so she was probably like freaked out. It's hard to think of like a topless woman as super threatening, but she seemed rattled anyway. Avril Lavigne anyway.
I guess a little. I mean, she's such a, I've only talked to her once, but she was so ultra professional that it's kind of hard to imagine her being too freaked out. But who knows? So, but you didn't win. Too bad.
No, that's okay. Yeah. We didn't really expect to win going in, which is, maybe a good perspective to have. And then if you win, you get pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it's kind of a cliche, but it is nice to just be nominated. Like, it is still an honor. And, maybe I wouldn't be as sunshine and roses if we hadn't already won some. Like, if we're, if we're 20 years into our career and we had lost 11 and won 0, then maybe I wouldn't be as,
Yeah, you've already got yours. And like you say, it's, especially to a party where, naturally they're kind of trying to skew younger and hipper and online artists and, TikTokers and things like that. And, so for you guys to be, still part of that kind of, I mean, you're almost elder statesman at this point in your careers,
Yeah, but ironically, we're actually the youngest band in the rock album of the year category.
Crazy.
And we're almost like 40 basically. But yeah, everyone else was older than us. So hopefully that doesn't speak too much to the public's lack of interest in rock music, but whatever.
Well, let's talk about what we're here to talk about, which is your new solo album. I think it's safe to say that you guys have entered your solo album days now. Everybody's got some extracurricular stuff going on.
I know there's a lot of Kiss jokes going on about when they all four of them released a solo album on the same day, and whatever that was, maybe 78 or something like that. Actually, I think probably like 10 years ago, it was probably seen as like, I don't know, maybe a negative thing for a band, for someone to go solo, right, and have that break up the band. But I think now it's almost seen as a bit of an asset.
Definitely.
There's so much stuff coming out, and everyone's expected to release a lot of content, that you just can't always do that with, one band. You can't, release 2 albums a year. It takes so long to ramp up for an album release and tour it and everything like that. And of course, touring is such an important part of making money as a musician these days. that it's, I think it's good for us to have, bros, which is Ewan and Seamus. Ewan and Seamus have both released solo albums. Now I'm going to release one in a couple of weeks, and I don't know, I think it reflects well on the band.
Totally. Now I'm going to mispronounce the title of yours. Is it Nutana?
Very close. Nutana is what I say.
Nutana? Okay.
Nutana, yeah.
And that's the neighborhood you grew up in or still live in?
I grew up in Saskatoon. I lived there for most of my life, and then recently, well, I guess about 5 years ago, me and my wife moved to the other side of the river to buy a house. But yeah, I'd still have like pretty strong ties there.
Okay.
Certainly.
Why did you pick that for a title?
Well, I definitely want to use a pseudonym as opposed to just my name. I remember reading this thing that Dallas Green from City and Color said years ago, where he like didn't want to see his name on a t-shirt, and that's why he he used City and Color. And I can kind of
Oh, so you're using that as the artist name as well as the album title?
It is the artist name and the album
Oh, okay.
title.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize
exactly.
that. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's definitely been you're not the only one who didn't who got that
Well, because nobody's asking,
mixed
do
up.
you want to talk to Nutana?
Yeah, sure, exactly. So I'll use my Sam Corbett name as best I can. Hopefully someone recognizes it. But yeah, I don't know. It's my songs. It's 10 original songs or thereabouts, depending on how you count this one medley at the end,
Right.
and a couple covers, and I'm singing on the lead. So it is very much me, but at the same time, I had a lot of really great collaborators on this album. So I don't know. It just felt like the right move to go with the name Nutana.
Fair enough. And obviously an incredibly personal album. I mean, most solo albums are personal, but yours is I think even more so. I don't want to tell the story. So, I mean, do you want to sort of give us the background on where this all started?
Sure. So in 2018, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. I had to have surgery, and then after that, some radiation treatment. And while this was going on, my wife was pregnant with our first child, right? So it was, needless to say, pretty heavy, right? Like, I was really thinking a lot about my life and my future, and I wasn't really sure what that was going to be like. Now, luckily, testicular cancer is a very treatable form of cancer. And knock on wood, it's about 4.5 years later now, and I'm still cancer free. So thank you. Yeah. So the story definitely has a happy ending, but at the time it was, my mind was going to some pretty dark places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially during my treatment. Radiation treatment they target a different part of the body for every different type of cancer, but mine was making me feel very tired and very sick to my stomach, and so I couldn't even like play the drums. I was supposed to be on a Sheepdogs tour as well,
Right.
but I had to bow out in order to get my treatment in a timely manner. So, physically I was feeling pretty weak. Mentally, emotionally, I was feeling down for sure. And during that time period, I started to play the piano a little bit more, and started to kind of write some chord progressions and melodies that ended up becoming a lot of the songs that were on this album. So
What made you, because this to me, I can only obviously imagine, but if I were in your shoes, I don't know that my impulse at any point would have been, you know what, I feel like making music, writing an album, channeling all of that I'm going through into music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily think of myself as like a super dynamic go-getter or anything like that, but I guess I had an issue with not doing anything at all, and just watching TV all day. I wanted to do something a little bit more, and I particularly wanted to like maintain a connection to music, right?
Mm.
Since that is such a part of my life.
Had you ever thought of or made any were you writing songs before this? Had you ever given thought to making any extracurricular stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I had written some songs,
Okay.
no songs that had made it onto a Sheepdogs album, but I hadn't really presented them either, right?
Sure. Well, you got some good co-writers in your band, so
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's not necessarily because I didn't want to, just I didn't really feel comfortable, or it wasn't,
Okay.
I don't know. I just maybe kept thinking like, oh, that's something I'll do later. Maybe that's something I'll do later.
Right.
And then the experience of having cancer made me realize I need to make this more of a priority in my life, is recording this music and releasing it.
Right. Now, having said all this, I think, people would not be remiss to go, wow, this is probably going to be a really depressing album. But it's not. I mean, and that surprised me to some degree in that, obviously you address your situation in some of
Mhm.
the songs, and without really flinching away from anything at times. But on the whole, the album, both musically and lyrically, a lot of the time, is kind of uplifting and positive. And if you really weren't paying attention to the lyrics and didn't necessarily know what you were singing about, it's got that sort of 70s soft rock, folk rock vibe going on. I mean, is that the way the song started, or was that something where you kind of started at a darker place and moved toward the light?
Well, most of the songs would start as me kind of coming up with the chords and the melody and stuff. And oftentimes that would start as me just playing a different song, like an existing song by like the Beatles or Stevie Wonder or something like that.
Hmm.
And then getting an idea from a chord change and adapting that into something else, with a different feel. It wasn't until, months later when I started writing lyrics when I realized that a lot of the lyrics were turning out to be about my experience. Now, having said that, like there's a pretty upbeat sounding song musically that's about a very like kind of depressing time in my life when I was stuck at home and didn't really know what to do with my life. And I think that kind of juxtaposition is okay. And doesn't necessarily, not everything about a sad subject has to be a dirge or whatever. And but also, so there's a medley of songs towards the end of the album that's about my process of having cancer, and it kind of roughly follows the stages of grief,
Right.
like kind of shock, bargaining, anger, and then that ends with acceptance, right? And so that song is pretty upbeat, where I'm thinking about my life moving forward and what that would be like if experience has changed me and if it's for the better. And when I do think back on it, like I said, fortunate enough to be cancer free still. And when I look back on that time, it's kind of hard not to see it as a positive experience for me, just because, it gave me a whole new outlook on life and made me realize I wanted to write and record my own music and release it.
Right. Talking about new outlook on life. I mean, I've talked to Kevin Hearn, who is a cancer survivor. I've talked to Roseanne Cash, also cancer survivor, and both of them kind of say that it really had a profound impact on just that whole notion of whatever you want to do it now, and they no longer give a shit what anybody else thinks of anything they do. Have you found yourself kind of in that same sort of scenario?
Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff that I really, really cared a lot about that now it just does not weigh on me in the same way as it did before I had cancer. So that's definitely part of it. And it really did make me realize that I want to release this album. Now, having said that, you got to do it now is what they're saying, right? And it took me like 5 years, but
Well, it was always a now.
yeah,
Everyone,
right. It's all relative, right? Because
yeah.
it had taken me, I guess, 15 years before that to even get to it.
Mm.
But so I had the treatment, and then as soon as I was done, I went on a pretty long Sheepdogs tour, got back, realized, hey, I want to kind of do this. And by the time I got the courage to do it and started recording, then the pandemic hit, and then obviously that puts everything on pause. Pandemic, starts to, I don't want to say wind down or whatever, but it got to the place where you could play live shows again. All of a sudden the Sheepdogs are like, okay, we got to go play all over the world now. So it definitely takes a long time it was a long process, maybe longer than I thought, but
I
that's
mean,
okay.
that can be a hindrance or a help though too, because it kind of gives you time to live with the songs and go back to them and revise, change. Did you do a lot of that, or did things kind of stay as they were and you just picked away at them until you got them?
No, I definitely did, and I definitely very much like that process. I like thinking of new ideas for songs, like after they're written, a lot of the writing process is really
Rewriting.
intertwined with, well, yeah, rewriting or intertwined with the recording process, right? Where you're there and you try something and all of a sudden it becomes like an integral part of the song that sounds like it was there from the beginning.
Right.
It can be a bit of a curse too when you're just like listening to stuff over and over again, like, hey, what if I what if I redid this part and then all of a sudden it could be this, and all of a sudden it's a year later and you're thinking, am I ever going to be done this? Or, you know.
Yeah, did it give you some newfound respect for your coworkers?
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, when we do Sheepdogs stuff, Ewan is the writer of nearly every song, and he has produced our last couple albums, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes he has a very clear idea of what he wants stuff to sound like. Other times he is more open to what everyone can contribute. And both ways are actually totally fine with me. I don't think he's like a tyrant or anything like that in the studio, but sometimes he has to make important decisions that ultimately fall to him. And in this case, working on my album, you know, that was me in that role. And I definitely like that. I like being in that different role. And I think it kind of helps me be a better member of the Sheepdogs as well, to realize what those decisions are like.
Oh, exactly. Do you think you'll be more likely to pipe up in the studio with your ideas now, or less likely?
You know, I think we've got a pretty good dynamic where I know when, you know, when it's my turn to contribute something, or, you know, maybe if I have an idea, but it's just not the right moment to bring it up, I'll just tuck it away for later.
Know when to walk away, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. No drum solo.
No, I just started recently playing a kind of, I don't know, minute-long drum solo in Sheepdog shows. You know, I don't know what, you know, you said maybe people think it's going to be a depressing record, or I had one person like thought the album was going to be just me playing drums, like layers and layers of drums.
Yeah.
I don't know who wants to listen to that necessarily, but
well, Dave Lombardo from Slayer has a new solo album coming out, and it is indeed
oh,
all
really?
just, yeah, layers and layers of drums, just percussion.
I mean, that can be great too, but you know, it wasn't necessarily, maybe I didn't think the message of my cancer journey could come across quite as well with just drum solos.
That can be the second album.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
You know, you mentioned doing two covers, and those are, of course, Buffy's Codine,
Yeah.
and this sort of rework of the Tame Impala album.
Mhm.
The Buffy song, I mean, it totally kind of fits in with, you know, a lot of the other topics on the album.
Mhm.
The Tame Impala one seems kind of a little more left field. Where did that kind of enter the mix?
Well, I definitely wanted to have like a break from everything being just about, you know, my diagnosis and treatment and stuff. And, you know, one of my favorite artists, and who I think is one of the best songwriters of all time, is Leon Russell. And his albums always have really great covers that are often very different from the original. So that was something I knew I wanted to be part of my album as well. And so in the case of that song, the original is "'Cause I'm a Man" by Tame Impala, and me and my wife just really, really loved that song when it came out, and would listen to it, you know, over and over again. I just thought it would be cool to have a pedal steel play the synthesizer part. And so when I had that idea, I thought, well, maybe it could be like kind of a country funk version of the song. And, you know, that kind of led me to think like, well, what if in the country realm, what if a woman was singing these lyrics? It would be kind of like almost a Stand By Your Man, Tammy Wynette thing. And then when I needed a woman to sing the song, I thought, well, who better than to get my wife Ashley to sing it? And
good idea, sir.
Yeah.
Major husband points there.
Well, yeah, it was just such a, you know, important song to us. And
Sure.
I don't know, it just seemed to fit the whole vibe. The two of us worked on you had to change some lyrics. And so the two of us worked on that together. And I just thought it was cool. Like, you know, we have two daughters now, and they obviously know that their dad is in this band, but I thought it'd be cool for them to look back and see that their mom was also, you know, she sang on a record too. I also loved when the Beatles, you know, would have their wives on their albums, and
right.
You know, Ashley's a better singer than
you're the only
Yoko
person
and Linda. So
yeah, I was gonna say you're the only person who likes when the Beatles had their wives on the album. So
well, you know, I know what you're saying, but you know, it's just kind of cool that was just that their partners were such a huge part of their lives. I think.
Talking about Leon Russell, did you ever see him?
No, unfortunately not. No, didn't really get that close to an opportunity either.
I was lucky enough once. I went to a 25th anniversary taping for Austin City Limits, and it was Willie Nelson.
Yeah,
and he came out to do a couple of songs, and he was just majestic, man. Like he was literally larger than life. Like at that stage, you know, he's a big guy, and he had the white suit and the giant ass beard and the hat. It was like
I know his like the presence he must have had. Like he can just it comes through on the recording so well too. He just plays every piano line with such confidence, and sings like so crazily. I almost want to say like it's just like with such abandon, I guess you'd say, right?
Yeah. There's a new
Willie Nel-
biography of him out too that I'm gonna get.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I should read that for sure. And Willie Nelson is another great example of, he's written some of the greatest songs of all time, and yet a lot of his albums and signature songs are like covers, right? So,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So are you going to get some? Are you going to get some star time in the live show now? You're going to get to do a couple of these songs, maybe?
well, Doug's shows, like we have kind of a collection of side projects now. There's Bros, which is Ewan
Yeah.
and Seamus. Ewan released a solo album a couple of years ago, and Seamus just released one a couple of weeks ago. Our new guitarist Ricky has a solo career as well, Ricky Paquette, and now
Yeah.
I'm releasing a solo album. So it's getting pretty crowded with the the solo projects, which I actually think is a pretty good thing. Up to this point, Sheepdog shows have been just Sheepdog songs, and I think that's the way it'll be for the foreseeable future. But you never know, right?
Well, now you guys can band together, though. You got you got majority vote here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, maybe we could do a medley in the future or something.
Yeah. Or the solo tour.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We should sell a package where you can buy all of our solo albums together as like a box set or something.
And now we're getting back to that Kiss thing again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you now do you think that you'll be making more solo albums? Is this now a bug that you've kind of been bitten by and want to continue? Or is this something where you kind of got it out of your system?
I would like to. I don't have something as important to say right now as I did with that, particular story of my diagnosis and treatment, but
Right.
I did really enjoy the process. I, like I said, it was the first time I like produced an album. And since then I've produced another album for my friend Ellen Fraze. It was a solo artist from Saskatoon. I may have another opportunity to produce something again in the next couple of months, which would be great. I really, really enjoyed that process. And I would definitely love to go back in the studio and record some more of my music. I'm thinking maybe something a little bit more, something I could turn around a little quicker might be a good idea. Like maybe just a single song or a couple songs, EP type of thing.
Yeah, a
which
couple
is
more
actually,
covers, maybe.
yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Given the model of how streaming works, that they want stuff to be coming out pretty frequently. It actually would have been a lot smarter if I'd saved both covers and released them, 6 months later, but oh well.
You can do. I mean, it's an infinity of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So are you guys? I know you're doing some summer festivals, but that seems to be the extent of your live work. Is that because you're just kind of taking it easy otherwise, or are you kind of inching towards a new album already?
With Sheepdog stuff, well, we had a super busy 2022 and
Right.
into January, where we played like 90 shows or something like that in Europe, UK, US, Canada. We're actually going to Australia in April.
Right.
And then, so because of that, we've played pretty well everywhere we can play. Summer's going to be a little bit slower, some festival stuff. We are going to do some recording. We haven't done any as of yet, and we don't have any studio time booked, but I'm sure that'll be happening this summer where we can get something. And it might be a similar thing too, or maybe we just bang out a couple songs and release them a little quicker, and maybe they become a part of an album later as well. We haven't quite figured out the next move, and we're just kind of enjoying a little bit of downtime as well. Enjoying it so much that two of us released solo albums during our time off. So
Exactly. When you mentioned the production, it kind of reminded me of Patrick Carney, I mean, obviously who you've worked with, it's kind of a similar path to what he took.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty enjoyable to, obviously he's lucky to have a mega successful band. I'm lucky to be in a pretty successful band, no doubt. But at the same time, it's always fun to do different stuff that takes you outside your comfort zone, stuff where you're in a new role. I think it's good for you. I think it helps you become a better member of whatever band you're in. And so, I think there'll be more of that for sure.
Yeah. Anything else on the go that you want to tell people about?
No, I mean, nothing I can think of off the top of my head. Releasing an album is a lot of work, so that's taking up basically all my time right now.
I bet.
Let alone being in the Sheepdogs as well. So yeah.
Right. Well, I know you've got other people to talk to today, so I will tell you, thanks for your time and thanks for this music. I really was pleasantly surprised by it, given again, what I thought it might have been going in.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and also like somebody who plays the drums, like you never know what that's going to sound like, right? The guy who's like fumbling through playing like just a G on the guitar or whatever, right? So you never know what that's going to sound like because it's not really a melodic instrument, right? So
Oh,
yeah, who knows? I hope other people are pleasantly surprised as well.
I think they will be. All right,
Yeah.
man. Well, listen, thanks again, and we'll see you somewhere down the road.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
Okay, bye.
See ya.